Welcome to another episode of Out from the Horrorbox. I'm your ghastly host, Dom, and we're going to look at the 2014 Australian psychological horror film, The Babadook. When this episode comes out, it will be during June of 2023, which is Pride Month. So I wanted to include that The Babadook has become appropriated by the LGBTQ+ community as a queer icon. Come along and let's jump right into the episode. After graduating from the National Institute of Dramatic Art, where she studied acting alongside S.C. Davis, Jennifer Kent set out to work primarily as an actor in the film industry for over 2 decades. Eventually, she lost her passion for acting by the end of the 1990s and sent a written proposal to Danish filmmaker Lars von Trier, asking to assist on the set of his 2003 drama film Dogville to learn from him. He accepted her proposal, and she considers the experience her film school, citing the importance of stubbornness as a key lesson she learned. Prior to The Babadook, Kent completed a short film called Monster and an episode of the television series Too Twisted. She explained in May 2014 that the origins of The Babadook could be found in Monster, which she calls Baby Babadook. Kent began writing the screenplay around 2009 and said she sought to tell a story about facing up to the darkness within ourselves, the fear of going mad, and an exploration of parenting from a real perspective. On parenting, she further explained, "Now, I'm not saying we all want to go and kill our kids, but a lot of women struggle, and it is a very taboo subject to say that motherhood is anything but a perfect experience for women." About the characters, she said, "It was really important for me that they were loving and lovable people. I don't mean likable, I mean that we really felt for them." She completed 5 drafts of the script. In terms of film influences, Kent cited 1960s, 70s, and 80s horror, including The Thing, Halloween, Les Yeux Sans Visage, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Carnival of Souls, The Shining, Vampire, Nosferatu, and Let the Right One In. Forced to reduce their total budget, producer Christina Satan managed to secure funding of around $2.5 million, I think that's in Australian dollars, from the government bodies Screen Australia and the SAFC. However, they still required an additional budget for the construction of the film sets. To attain the funds of the sets, Kent and Causeway Films producer, again Christina Satan, launched a Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign in June 2012 with a target of $30,000, but I believe that's in US dollars. Their funding goal was reached on September 27th, 2012, through pledges from 259 backers, raising just $71 over that $30,000 that they needed. Kent said that the crowdfunding closed a crucial gap in which to cover design and special effects expenses to build a special visual world. The film was primarily shot in Adelaide, South Australia, with most of the interior shots filmed on a soundstage in the city. As funding from the South Australian state government, this was a requirement that Kent needed to meet. And that's a whole other subject on the Australian government. I believe, I think Canada kind of does that too. I think Canada's a little bit more looser with, what you have to, the parameters, because you do have to go through them to get, certain fundings, certain permits, certain things like that, like acting, as well as just a lot of their stuff. Instead of having where we have a lot of unions here and they kind of control everything, it's more like the government kind of controls everything, so you have to get a lot of approval, especially South Australia. If they give you funding, you have to meet certain requirements. To contribute to the universality of the film's appearance, a Victorian terrace-style house was specifically built for the film. Kent originally wanted the film to be in black and white to create a heightened feel that is still believable. Kent later lost interest in the black and white idea and worked closely with production designer Alex Holmes to create a very cool, very claustrophobic interior environment with meticulously designed sets. Kent described the filming process as stressful because of Weissman's age. That's who played Noah Weissman, who played Samuel, the child. Kent explained, "So I really had to be focused. We needed double the time we had. Weissman's mother was on set and a very protective, loving environment was created." Kent explained after the release of the film that Weissman was protected throughout the entire project. During the reverse shots where Amelia was abusing Sam verbally, we had S.E. Davis yell at an adult stand-in on his knees. "I didn't want to destroy a childhood to make this film. That wouldn't be fair." Kent's friendship with Davis was a boon during filmmaking, and Kent praised her former classmate in the media. To her credit, she's very receptive, that's of Davis, and likes to be directed and is a joy to work with. A script reading was not done since Noah Weissman was only 6 years old at the time, and Kent focused instead on bonding, playing games, and lots of time spent with the actors so that they could become more familiar with one another. Pre-production occurred in Adelaide and lasted 3 weeks, and during this time, Kent conveyed a kiddie version of the narrative to Weissman, in which young Samuel is the hero. Kent took Weissman to the Adelaide Zoo to explain the story and said Weissman was aware of that it was a scary film and that he knew how important the role was. I believe this is more due to the actor. I believe his parents were or are therapists or something, and so I think they kind of knew how to explain to him the story and like what was going to be happening and why were they doing this or why were they doing that in a way that was more appropriate and not just like flat out like, oh, she's going crazy, dude. No, like I think they kind of explained it to him during that process, and that's why I think he understood beyond like him being like 6 or 7 at the time. Like I think like because they explained it to him in a way that he understood, like he got it. So in terms of the Babadook, like the monster, the scary effects of the film, Kent was adamant from the outset the production that a lo-fi handmade approach would be used. She cites the influence of George Millay, John Epstein's The Fall of the House of Usher, and Haxan. And Haxan's a pretty good film. If you haven't seen it, it's an old film, but it's amazing. It's ridiculous. It's awesome. Kent used stop motion effects for the monster, and a large amount of smoothing was completed in post-production. Kent explained to the Empire publication, "There's been some criticism of the lo-fi approach for the effects, and that makes me laugh because it was always intentional. I wanted the film to be all in camera." She also said that the man in the beaver hat from the 1927 Lost film, London After Midnight, was an inspiration for the design of the Babadook. And if you haven't ever seen, I'm pretty sure you'll know what this guy looks like without ever having like seen this or heard of this Lost film. He's very iconic. If you just Google it, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's totally what, like, she took that straight from that and was like, she tweaked it a bit, but it's pretty much one for two. So with having production, funding, actors, and everything in hand, Jennifer Kent went out to make this motion picture, The Babadook, and let's just get straight into it.
Where'd you get this?
On the shelf.
If it's in a word or it's in a look, you can't get rid of the Babadook. A rumbling sound, then 3 sharp knocks.
Babadook, duk, duk.
That's when you'll know he's around. You'll see him if you look. Nothing bad's gonna happen, Sam.
Did you think that about my dad before he died?
He sees things as they are, that one.
I promised to protect you if you promised to protect me.
Oh my God. Did he hurt anyone?
The boy has significant behavioral problems.
This monster thing has got to stop, all right? It's just a book. It can't hurt you.
You don't have to be fine, you know.
Just a bit stressed at the moment.
All children see monsters.
Not like this. I want to report someone stalking me and my child.
You can't get rid of the Babadook.
You can bring me the boy. You can bring me the boy. You can bring me the boy.
What do you want? You're trespassing in my house! I'm sick, Sam. I need help. It isn't real. It isn't real. It isn't real.
After her husband, Oscar, was killed in a car accident while on the way to the hospital while she was in labor, Amelia Vanek, played by Essie Davis, has become exhausted by her troubled 6-year-old son, Samuel, played by Noah Weissman. He has been displaying erratic behavior. He is an insomniac and is preoccupied with an imaginary monster which he has built weapons to fight. Amelia is forced to pick him up early as he takes one of the weapons to school. One night, he asks his mother to read a pop-up storybook that mysteriously appeared called Mr. Babadook. It describes a tall, pale-faced humanoid monster, the titular Babadook, in a top hat with taloned fingers which torments its victims after they become aware of its existence. Amelia is disturbed by the book and its mysterious appearance, while Sam becomes convinced that the Babadook is real. Sam's persistence about the Babadook leads Amelia to have sleepless nights as she tries to comfort him. Strange events begin to occur. Doors mysteriously open and close, strange noises, and Amelia finding glass shards in her food. She attributes the events to Sam's behavior, but he blames the Babadook. Amelia rips up the book and throws it away. At her birthday party, Sam's cousin Ruby, played by Chloe Hearn, bullies him for not having a father, and he pushes her out of her treehouse, breaking her nose. Amelia's sister Claire, played by Haley McElhenney, admits she cannot stand Sam, which offends Amelia, so they leave. On the drive home, Sam has another vision of the Babadook and suffers a seizure. She gets some sedatives from the pediatrician, who treats him. Next morning, Amelia finds the Mr. Babadook book reassembled on the front doorstep. New words in it taunt her, saying the Babadook will become stronger if she continues to deny its existence. And now it contains pop-ups of her killing her dog Bugsy, Sam, and then herself. She becomes so terrified that she burns the book and runs to the police station after receiving a disturbing call. While at the police station, she has no proof of the stalking, and when she sees that the Babadook suit hung up behind the front desk, she leaves. That night, as she tries to fall asleep, she sees the Babadook open her bedroom door, crawl up the ceiling, and attack her. She then turns on all the lights in the house and falls asleep with Sam downstairs. After the attack, Amelia becomes more isolated and impatient, shouts at Samuel for disobeying her constantly, and has more visions of the Babadook. She exhibits erratic and violent behavior, including cutting the phone line and then waving the knife aggressively at Sam. She has disturbing hallucinations in which she sees herself murdering Sam. Amelia sees an apparition of Oscar, played by Ben Winspear, who offers to return to her if she brings the boy to him. Realizing he is a creation of the Babadook, She flees, and the Babadook stalks her through the house until finally it possesses her. Under its influence, she breaks Bugsy's neck and attempts to kill Sam. Eventually luring her into the basement, Sam knocks her out. Tied up, Amelia awakens with Sam, terrified nearby. When she tries to strangle him, he lovingly caresses her face, causing her to regurgitate an inky black substance, which seemingly expels the Babadook. However, Sam reminds Amelia that you can't get rid of the Babadook, and an unseen force drags him backwards into Amelia's bedroom. She saves Sam, but is forced to see a vision of her husband's death. Furious, she confronts the Babadook, making it retreat into the basement, and she locks the door behind it. Eventually, Amelia and Sam manage to recover. She is attentive and caring toward him, encouraging him with building his weapons and being impressed at his magic tricks. In the garden, they gather worms in a bowl. Amelia takes it to the basement and places it on the floor. The Babadook tries to attack her, but she soothes it and it retreats into the corner, taking the bowl of worms with it. She returns to the yard to celebrate Sam's birthday. Before we get into my final thoughts on the film, I wanted to go over a little bit of the why and how the Babadook became like such a queer icon over the years. The year is 2016, month October. A Tumblr user jokes that the Babadook is openly gay, and later in December of 2016, another Tumblr user posts a viral screenshot showing the movie being classified by Netflix as an LGBTQ film. Despite the lack of overt references to LGBT culture in the film, fans and journalists alike started to make interpretations of queer subtext in the film. These were often tongue-in-cheek, but occasionally more serious, highlighting the character's dramatic persona, grotesque costume, and chaotic effect within a traditional family structure. Queerness is not new to the horror genre. Back in the 1930s, James Whale, an openly gay man, directed the iconic Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. At this time, the Hays Code had gone into effect and could have ended his livelihood and life just being open about his sexuality. Named for Will H. Hays, president of the MPAA from 1922 to 1945, the Hays Code was a set of industry guidelines for self-censorship of content that was applied to most motion pictures released by major studios in the U.S. The censorship included profanity, illegal drugs, white slavery, ridicule of the clergy, nudity, and sex perversion, but a lot more beyond that. Eventually, in 1968, after several years of minimal enforcement, the production code was replaced by the MPAA film rating system. Over time, we've seen out gay filmmakers contribute to the horror genre. Screenwriter Arthur Laurentis penned the film Rope for his partner Farley Granger and was directed by Alfred Hitchcock. He wasn't gay, but he's the director of the film. The haunting lesbian subtext with the character of Theo, which portrayed the character powerful and not a punchline. Clive Barker, an out horror writer with his novella adapted into the film Hellraiser. In the Child's Play series, we see a non-binary character in Chucky and Tiffany's child, Glenn/Glenda. Vampires, werewolves, slashers, and more monsters have represented what we don't understand, and for a lot of time in Western culture, queerness was misunderstood. Pushed to the edges and hiding in the shadows, just like the entities that antagonize in these films. Now we can shed light on those dark places, and people no longer have to hide who they are, no longer the monsters. Now back to the Babadook. In June 2017, the Babadook trended on Twitter and was displayed as a symbol during that year's Pride Month. The social media response became so strong that theaters in LA took the opportunity to hold screenings of the film for charity. Michael Bronski said to the LA Times, "In this moment, who better than the Babadook to represent not only queer desire, but queer antagonism, queer in-your-faceness, queer queerness, and drew comparisons to historic connections between queerness and horror fiction such as Frankenstein and Dracula." From an article on The Guardian called "Visibly Horrified: The Coming Out of Queer Terror Cinema," over the next few years, various wags of Tumblr began to insist that the film's eponymous monster, a towering, charcoal-sketched ghoul with a stovepipe hat, ice-pick fingers, and an inordinate number of sharply rectangular teeth, was in fact a gay icon. Gradually, what began as a joke evolved into a meme, and eventually an insistent theory. LGBTQ+ fans of the film declaring themselves Babashook, liken the on-screen family's fear of the weird, fangy beast to the panic and hostility that often greets the presence of queerness in predominantly straight households. Sure enough, Babadook images and costumes began to appear at Pride events. In 2019, the film's U.S. distributor, IFC Films, even issued a limited Prime edition of the film on Blu-ray. "It feels really quite beautiful, but I still have no idea why," Kent said of the film's queer appropriation. "I guess he's an outsider of sorts. It's funny." She said that she loved the meme, saying that, "I think it's crazy and the meme just kept him alive. I thought, you bastard. He doesn't want to die. He's finding ways to become relevant." So I say to all of you, Happy Pride Month. Say it loud and proud. And for those of you not part of the community, show your support. We all deserve to love and be loved. So now we come to my final thoughts on the film. The Babadook is a gothic monster movie that calls back to the days of the old Universal movie monsters, and I love it. I saw this movie with my friend. The lights were off, and it was the part when the mom is trying to sleep, but the door slowly opens, and a dark figure stands there. She covers herself, and we hear the monster say, "Babadook." That's what scares me. Waking up and looking into the dark and seeing a shape like waiting there for you. That's fucking terrifying. The movie is a slow burn, and at first you're kind of annoyed by the kid, but once you learn about like the Babadook and the whole thing kind of like turns, you completely agree with this kid and like some shit's going down. I also love that this is like a symbol for like the stresses of parenting and like not working out like the feelings that can be passed on to your child and affect them in a way that's harmful, because they're going to see the way that you're presenting yourself and like the actions that you take, right? They see that. They see all these things and they will present that to other people. They'll either to other kids, to other adults. And, it's kind of harmful when you're not dealing with your own stresses and you're just passing it off to someone else. Like, the mom should have dealt with the husband's passing and got herself right, as well as helping her son, right? Like, don't just ignore him either. And we see that, like, that's one thing that's an obstacle towards the end, is she has to deal with seeing her husband in the car accident again. And she has to get over that to save her son. Like, plus the ending really sells it, like, she has overcome this and knows how to keep that darkness in check, and that she needs to be there for her son with like that he helps her like collect the worms, and like she's encouraging his magic and she's encouraging him to build these things. And the fact that like it's the birthday party and he finally has people over, and it's not just her and him in this lonely, cooped up like Victorian Gothic, menacingly evil, like dark castle house. And another reason to love this film is the fact that it's become an icon for the LGBTQ plus community. If you told me that this would become such an icon for queerness and be a queer icon. After I watched the film the first time, I probably would have scoffed. I would have been like, where did you get that from this? This has nothing to do with it. This is more to do with depression than anything. But after a little bit, I came to understand, even if it started as a meme, why this particular movie monster fits. They aren't overly flamboyant, but anyone or anything, I guess, that puts that much effort into how they look, the top hat, the eyeliner, making sure their teeth are like that, and the lipstick. There has to be some kind of queer, right? Not in a bad way, but you know what I mean? There has to be some type of LGBT, some like maybe gay, maybe bi, maybe even non-binary, right? I love it because it just adds to the lore of the Babadook. This is a solid first film from Jennifer Kent, and I'd love to see more from her. This is 2 thumbs worthy. So what are your thoughts on the Babadook? Did you like the film? Did you hate it? Or what was your favorite part? But thank you all for listening. Please subscribe if you like what you hear to get every new episode downloaded. Have any strange, mysterious, or unexplained stories? Are they fact? Did you craft a story yourself? If you'd like us to read your stories, you can email them to horrorboxpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to read them on the podcast. We'd also like to post these stories to our socials on Instagram or TikTok @HorrorboxPodcast, where we also have updates and news. One last thing. If you like the podcast and would like to support the podcast, buy me a coffee. You can buy me a coffee at coffee.com/HorrorboxPodcast. It would really help out. We'll see you next time and hear what comes out from the horror box.